Okay. We're going to cover this morning, Lord willing, 5 do's and 5 don'ts to condense it down in a family situation. One of the things that causes today the greatest issues and problems in family is a lack of what? Communication. We have come to be people, and I actually find myself doing this, is that something will happen, like for instance yesterday Marisa came to the house and dropped off this Spanish pudding that she makes once in a blue moon, but everybody's got to have a little piece of it. So when she brought it over, by the time I got upstairs to talk to Alex or be with Alex at 8 o'clock, I just didn't feel like talking. So I didn't even tell him there was pudding down in there.
Now was that 8 a.m. or 8 p.m.?
PM. And he hadn't come downstairs, so I just didn't feel like talking. And that's a don't, really. Because when you're sharing with your companion, you're sharing with your children, whether you feel like talking or not, you need to. And this is where we're lacking in building our families. Okay, I am a very firm believer to this day, with only 2 people in our house, is that when we sit down at the table, we sit down as a family unit. Okay, don't look at me like that. I want you all to look at me and say, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Sitting down to eat together is a good thing. But then we have an issue here. In our table, ever since the girls could even open their mouth to speak, we used that time as we ate. Because if you will notice, when you have company, there's like, a little, feels strange when the person comes in the house and there's a little withdrawnness there. But by the time you finish a meal together, it's yak, 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 yak. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
It just relaxes you. And that happens the same thing with the family. But we're getting away from this issue of eating as a family. Number 1, husband comes in late or wife comes in late, so everybody has already eaten because they've got other things to do. And really, you are killing your family unit if you do this. You need to say we have to eat at least once a day together. And if for some reason you had to eat because of physical problems, sit down. How many times I've been on the road and come back home and Alex is sitting down to eat his lunch when I've already eaten with my mother, then I will sit down at the table with him and we will converse, even though I'm not eating. The point is there is a point of communication that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think in a family, a lack of communication. Okay, I was saying that as children, we allowed our children when they sat at the table to talk about what had happened in school, if they had had a problem, and we would discuss it, or we would laugh, or it was something funny, or somebody started with a joke to say, or whatever, while we were eating. However, then we have the other pattern of family that I have heard of, that they all sit down at the table, and all they do is concentrate on eating, they're done, they're finished. We had that. And that's really not too healthy. Because really as a family unit, when do you get together as a family unit? All right, Noreen has 2 little girls and she has a grown teenager. When on earth are you going to get all of this different age factors together? If it's anything, the kids want to watch a cartoon and he wants to watch a movie, and so they're all sitting there arguing about something. But if you're sitting at the table eating your food, for some reason it's developed as you learn you don't argue at the table, you don't bring controversial things at the table. It's just family. And you train your children that way. And this way you build a unit. So that's one of the do's that we have that's not in the 5. But I laid that as a foundation before we read the scripture because of the scriptures we're fixing to read. Now, Matthew 18:6, what does it say?
It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck than he drowned in
Okay, what was the first part of that verse? Whosoever shall offend one of these little ones, okay? Ephesians 6 and 4.
Bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
What's the first words of that one?
Ye fathers,
No, what, a little bit more.
provoke not your children.
Provoke not your children, okay? Colossians 3:21, Catherine.
Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged.
Lest they be what?
Discouraged.
Okay. Proverbs 13:24, Tico.
He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes.
Okay. Daniel 22:6.
Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Okay.
Amen.
Training is one of the basic things. Now, we got here in this class young married couples that have no children that hope to have some. Then we have some that are not wed that will have children. Then we have single parent children. Then we have grandpas and grandmas. And then we have mothers that are very busy and with what the little flock they have already. So it is good for us to be reminded. Brother and Sister T have grandchildren. Sister Grant has grandchildren. I have grandchildren. Brother Nelson has lots of them.
7.
Huh? I said, yeah, okay. But I'm sure she doesn't sit down at the table. But many times, grandchildren will be coming to our home. Is that not correct? All of you that have grandchildren? We need to keep the same rules that we had when we had our own children. Because our influence is training them up too. And if mom and papa don't do it because they're not saved or because they don't find it important, at least they have something to be grounded with. Okay? So, all of these scriptures, and I brought my iPad, so you will excuse me, but I found it easier to read Ephesians 6 from various translations. Okay, one of the translations says, do not aspirate your children. What does that mean, Laura? Wilmer?
What's the word again?
Aspirate. I did. Do not aspirate your children.
I don't know, provoke.
That's the other translation. But give me a better everyday translation. Danny? You don't antagonize them, frustrate them. It'd be a real word that you could use for little tiny tots, or those that are about anywhere from 8 to 10 to 11 years old. Don't frustrate them, okay? Do not provoke your children to anger. Do not provoke your children to anger, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Do not stir up anger in your child, is another translation. Do not provoke your children to wrath. All of that means the same thing. And the reason why I'm doing that is for you to see that no matter what, do not irritate your children. Okay, why am I saying, it says, provoke not your children, but nourish them, okay? Reason why I'm telling you all these different translations is because no matter how you phrase it, we, as parents, have a great responsibility in our communication to the children on how we talk to them. We can frustrate them. How can we frustrate a child? Okay, you've been through the whole process, except the grandkids yet.
By not letting them breathe,
By not letting them breathe.
by being excessive and extreme.
Excessive and extreme, okay? How else can you frustrate your children?
By not being the example that you should be. You tell them to do one thing, you do the opposite. So that creates frustration, and that does make them angry. Well, how dare you tell me to do this, and when you yourself don't measure up and do what you need to do?
Did y'all hear that in the back? You have to turn around and say it again because the poor sons back there, they just can't hear.
Another way of frustrating your children and provoking them to anger is that you expect something out of them that you don't expect out of your own self. So you tell them, do this, do the other, but yet they see that what's wrong with you, that you're not doing what you're supposed to do either. So that would make them angry. That would frustrate them because you are expecting something out of them that you yourself can't or do not produce.
And another way you can frustrate a child is they don't really understand what you're trying to say. Because many times we think our children are about as smart as we are and should understand the words, what we're trying to get across, but they don't. They're children. So therefore we have to take a different approach. Sister Rhoda.
Coming on is don't ask them to do something that they're developmentally not ready to do.
Right.
Okay, they're children, and you may be asking them something that is way over their heads and they can't understand or capture what you're saying, and then you don't explain it. And I know that we're parents and that we don't always have to explain everything, but when they're little, they don't understand what you're saying, and you can frustrate them, and then you end up spanking them and they're looking at you like, huh?
Yeah, you spank them because they didn't do what you said them to do, but yeah, they didn't grasp the whole essence of what they were supposed to do.
They're not developmentally ready.
That's why we go to the scripture that said, instruct the child. Now, those of us that have been through the process in a lot of areas already, we know that talking and explaining situations and things and how to do it is how a child can grasp the fact that they have to do it. Okay, so the first thing, or the first rule that we have in a dysfunctional family is they don't talk. You can run your mouth and still not say something. All right, all of you parents that are parents here, raise your hand. All of you that have been parents. Okay. Hugo, how many times have you thought about something and not expressed it or wanted something out of your child, have not talked about the subject at all, and still expected it from your child?
I'm not sure, maybe a lot of times. I'm not sure. You have to give me a better example.
Okay. Drugs is one thing. Okay. Today we hear parents say, if you don't take drugs, you know the consequences. Do they really know the consequences when they're 8 years old and 9 years old and 10 years old? So if I'm telling them, don't take it, there's consequences. And you should know what those consequences are. They have no clue, Mama. So what happens, we take for granted of who we are, that our children already know. My mother did that. All parents do that. They take for granted because I know you should know. Even husbands and wives do the same thing. Because I know, well, you should already know that. You should know how I feel. No, I don't. So we don't talk about things in the way that it should be. That's where, once again, gathering together at least once a day gives an opportunity for children, for you, to be able to instruct them in how to live and what the consequences are by situations that arise every day. Now, if your children turn out good, I ask you, was it because of who you were, or is it because of God's mercy? Most of the time it's because of God's mercy, because none of us have traveled this road before and we're lacking. So therefore it is necessary for us to realize that a dysfunctional family, one of the biggest things that'll be right off the top is they don't talk. Everybody does their own thing. Is there a limit, Sister T, of an age when you don't talk to your children? You'll always, right? And at her age and my age, we don't go and say, you have to do this and that and the other. We go and we say, you know what, I was thinking about what's happening. My opinion is, this is the way I feel about it. And that's the way you approach them. You can't tell them what to do anymore because they're grown, right? But you do want them to know that there is a wiser person that can give you a little bit more counsel over something, maybe, than what you're looking at, or a different way of looking at it. But dysfunctional parents, you can have good kids when they're growing up, and it doesn't look like a dysfunctional family, but dysfunctional will go on as the children grow older, because you have no influence over them. I hope till the day I die that I have influence over my children. And every parent should feel that way. That you will be able to be there as the woman in Proverbs. The woman in the Bible, that she was there for her son when they were kings. How many mothers were there present? Thank you, Sister Raquelita. We're being nice by not saying anything. So, don't talk. If you want a dysfunctional family, don't talk. Hugo. They're confusing.
Keep it down. Thank you.
Now in school, like recently I took a psychology course.
Oh, that's going to pick up on that. Go ahead.
They got louder. They got louder. Can't hear you.
You can hear it? No, I mean, I stopped talking.
Okay, Brother Wilmer.
Okay, I was saying that now you're teaching that in school. I took a psychology course recently, and there's a whole section on parenting. And they did studies on two groups. One of parents that actually do explain why they're being, spanked. The whole concept is spanking.
Right.
And they want to prove that spanking, that just going through directly to spanking is not a good idea. There's parents that explain why, and then they spank. In other words, communication, and then comes the punishment, and then there's other parents that they just spank. Now, the whole purpose of the study is to prove that these kids that were explained, they were able to rationalize, make better decisions in life, became attorneys, doctors, whatever, etc. And then the other groups, and it's proven
Because they were
Yeah.
abused, really. This
Yeah.
this is my husband. When he would give Kayla Marisa. Turn over. Bend over. Bend over. Bend over the bend over the Okay, I'm going to spank you because Proverbs 26 says,
And they used to go,
and
give it to me, don't give it.
they knew why they were getting a spanking. And then it got to the place where we didn't need a spanking anymore. All we needed was that. And they were trembling because they didn't want the talk, and they didn't want the scriptures put back on them. Because the talk was worse.
To this day, when I tell my girls, we have to talk, they're petrified.
Oh,
They're like,
mine too.
tell me now. I don't want to wait.
Exactly, because they outgrew the spanking part. They get to an age where you don't spank your child, but you sit and talk to them. But if you have cultivated that before, they tremble. And to this day, my girls say the same thing, and they're almost 50, both of them, and they're saying, tell me now, tell me now, tell me now. Do I have to go home? Do I have to tell after church? No, they want to know right now. Because the lectures. Why? Because, yes, we got the spankings, and we gave the spankings, but we gave it with understanding of why you're getting a spanking and why you're getting the discipline. And that is what happens when they don't talk. Like you said, it comes out in a negative way. They just give them a hard spanking, and you say, why did I get this spanking? Or why did they do this? So talking to the children is essential about every subject under the sun. Because years ago, children were taught their family history. They knew where they came from. I found it so interesting when one of my nephews came down. He's a grown man, he's got children of his own, and both him and his two boys sat down and wanted to know what it was like in my mother's childhood. They wanted to know the family history. Why? Because they were interested and already knew part of it, but they wanted the whole story. The thing here is that a lot of families don't even know, and this is sad, because I've experienced this in our own family, is that, let's say Miguel's my husband, okay? If we had children, if we had children, then it is Miguel's responsibility to tell his children, this happened to my father, this happened to my mother, there is a tendency in our family to have this, to do this, because let's go back to what Brother Alex preached one day, the DNA is very important. I asked somebody yesterday, what's wrong with your family's heads? Because they have medical issues with things in their head. Not that they're going crazy, but there's medical issues in their head, and that's a weak part of their body. It's a weak part of their DNA. So if you know your family history, it is good to share it. One of the things that my girls have always been conscientious of and proud of is the fact, proud, I said in a good way, is the fact that their heritage was German, their heritage is Latin and Spanish and European, and then we have all these other family members that come from Romania and from France and from all these other places. To them, it's very interesting, and it makes them an interesting person as they go out and deal with the world. But yet, that's not talked about today. A lot of people get married, they have children with issues, and they never knew that their grandmother, their uncle, their aunt had the same problem because it's not talked about. So these things are important, is that we converse with our children, everything. Now, there's one thing that I 100% agree with. What sins are you talking about? You don't have to share that. God doesn't remember, and you don't really want your children to know what you have been and done. That's one thing. But you can speak with experience and wisdom when you do go those areas, because you have been able to conquer them, so you know how to deal with it. So don't talk, and you'll have a dysfunctional family. Don't feel. All right, what would I mean by feeling? You don't express your true feelings. Some people wear a mask 24 hours, even with their children. They do not allow transparency for their own family to see how they feel, what their feelings are and things. Now, don't show them, but then show too much and you got a problem. Because some people are always upset over everything. And they got to let you know, hey, aren't you ever happy? Aren't you ever got a good positive thing to say about anybody or anything? Or they may have their cultural beliefs, or the way they grew up, and where they grew up. And so they want to influence their children by talking too much by that. They can be negative and it can be positive. We learn the balance. That's why communication is so necessary. That's why we must instruct our children in certain things that will be beneficial for the rest of their life. Then we have number 3. I have to go quickly in this. Number 3 would be, don't touch. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means. What would that mean to you, Jeanette? Don't touch.
The other person?
Floyd?
It means that some parents don't, they're not affectionate with their kids. They don't hug, they don't kiss, they don't.
Believe it or not, there are parents that are not affectionate. There are mothers that have been wounded. Mothers is the main one, because the father, they got these ideas of being a man, but a father should be loving too, to his children. He doesn't have to be that way with the cousins and the other people in the family, but with his own children, he should be able to say, oh, I'll give you the example. I'm not a real touchy, lovey person, and I'm aware of it. I try. Believe me, I try. But sometimes it's not what's foremost in my mind. So every once in a while, I'll be sitting in the chair and I'll look at Nathaniel, and Nathaniel will walk by and say, come sit in my lap. Nathaniel's legs are hanging, about far down. He will actually obey and come and sit in my lap, and I will just rub him on the back or play with his hair, and then when he gets too heavy, I say, okay. But it's the fact that when he was little, I would carry him, and I still want him to know that I care enough that I would love to just squeeze him and bite him and pinch him and do everything that you do when you're demonstrating love to a baby. You want to show it when they get older. But a lot of times parents refrain from that type of talking. My mother was not gushy. And my mother, when she would sit by me in church and put her arm around, like Tico has his arm around Catherine, and she would rub me on my back like that, I was like, oh, my mama loves me. Because she was not the kind that would come and hug me and hold me tight and say, I love you. That was not her. And I learned that when I got older, but as a child I missed it. So I learned from that and realized that I have to make an effort to be loving. It's not in our nature in everybody. So we need to touch. We need to reach out and touch them when we're even getting on to them. Like, you know, you're telling them, now I have told you to do this over and over, but you're not doing it. Now, if I would grab him and say, you're not doing it, that's a different story. But if I would put my hand on him and say, I've told you over and over, and this is the last time that I'm going to tell you to do this. But I'm not, you know, but I am touching him to let him know that I have that right to be able to talk to you like that. Okay, this right there, nobody's beating me. Somebody got a hold of my arm the other day. I don't know. Everybody's looking at it. They even ask me in the streets, what is that on your arm? But touching, don't touch your children, and they'll grow up to be dysfunctional. They need to be touched. That's another one. Number 4, let issues just ride out. Don't resolve anything.
I heard that story before.
It don't work. As parents, you are responsible to resolve issues with the children and with your wife. We can do this a double way. But when your children have issues themselves, don't take the attitude they will outgrow it or they'll get tired of it. Resolve it. If you want it to be dysfunctional, then let it ride. And definitely it will grow into something that you don't want it to be. Rule number 5 for dysfunctional families, don't trust. All right, trust is something that has, and it's based on the other 4 really. It's something that you have to build. And you said it real good. Don't frustrate your children. Don't let them see you doing one thing and then you tell them something else. They need to trust your word. If I was to ask you, really, do you trust everything that comes out of your mother and your father's mouth? How would you feel? Because you're all grown. You can think back now with an open mind and look at things and see things. How would you feel? So we don't want to transfer that into our own families. We want our children to trust us. That no matter what their issue is, this child can come to us. The worst. In a girl, Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you. I trust it. They trust you because what she's fixing to tell you is going to break your heart. It is going to make you feel like a failure. She's going to tell you, I'm pregnant. Now, if she doesn't trust you, she's not going to tell you. Not in the world we live in today. She might try to get rid of it. She might try to do all kinds of things. But if she truly trusts you, she knows that you're going to handle it in the right way. So don't build trust in your children, and you'll have a dysfunctional family. Those are the 5 don'ts. Now, the do's are, invite them. Send a message to your children that they're welcome at any time. They're welcome to be with you anytime. Let them call into your bed. Let them sit in the floor with them. Reach down to their level so that you can build in them something. This is how you communicate. Is it in the Bible? No. But the Bible does say, instruct them, teach them, show them, admonish them. So in everyday language, I'm giving you these points to do in your own homes so that you can build in that child. Not one child, not one, but in all your children. Because that one child that you might be favorite to, And kids have a rivalry. Believe me, I grew up with 4. We have a rivalry. No, she loves you more than she loves me. And she does more for you than she does for me. To this day, when they're older, they'll say that. No, Mama always has done more for you. You were her favorite. You were the one she depended on. All that comes up later on when they can't say when they're little. But in all your children, that they may see that you love them the same. And they may be the devil of the family, the black sheep, as they say. And they may be the little santico, or the little saint of the family. But you need to learn to express your love equally, because you will damage the rest of them. So when you talk, you don't talk down to the one you don't care that much for, and praise the other one, because this one will be damaged. You're creating your own dysfunction, right? So you teach your children, you invite them to feel like you're part of their life no matter who they are, because as a young child, they begin to act out. How many of you had children that really acted out? Okay. There's some of us that have had 2 or 3, 4, maybe 5 of you have had children that were more I'm not going to say did sin or bad things. They just acted out. You got one. Early, there was one.
More determined to do their own thing.
Yeah, to be their own individual self. There's always one in among them. They always act out more than the other one. So our tendency is to just keep that one in its place and try to correct them all the time, while the other one, we just kind of, they could be sneaky and sly and do everything, but since you don't hear them, you don't see it, they just kind of get away with it. This is where parenting and talking comes in, where we have to watch so we can keep a balance. Remember, this is one thing I want to leave before we even get to the end, which we're almost there, is you are preparing that soul. Listen to me, every single one of you. You are preparing that soul so that when God steps in and starts talking to them, they will listen. Do you see how dangerous and how heavy a responsibility it is? Because you are making them aware, number one, they're not the boss. You are. There are rules and there are regulations that will be followed. It's how you get them across, the way you are, that they will see, and especially in fathers, they will see a reflection of God. Most of you sitting right here profess to be saints. So your child is, his image of the Father is you. Got it? Yeah. That's just the way that it is. As they sit as little children and grow into teenagers, they remember the Father as you. So how you train them up and do to them is how they're going to be successible to the Spirit of God. That's not the word. Huh? Accessible to the Spirit of God. When the Spirit wants to deal with you, because you are building in them, you're inviting them to help them see that God is, after you have finished basically your work, and God steps in. This could be at 6, 7, 8 years, and begins to show the plan of salvation, begins to show the need of being saved, the need of having a Savior. Then part of your work is done is because you have prepared that heart and that life so that they will be subject to the Holy Spirit and subject to the Father. But if they're not prepared, it's much, much harder for God to break that stone. I know for a fact that if a child is trained up the right way, it's much easier for them to get saved than it is for a child that is in a dysfunctional family. Because they have all this baggage they're dragging with them. And the blame many times is on the parents. And it's in communication. You express, you model your feelings with honesty, genuineness, transparency, and in a manner that would honor Christ. You affirm Love can be communicated in many ways, physically, verbally, spiritually, in word and in deed. You forgive your children. They can do the worst thing, like we gave the example of a girl being pregnant. She could do the worst thing that would break your heart, and you would still forgive them because they're a soul. And you have the closest access to them to try to reach them. That you tolerate their sin? No. That you have to make clear. But you love them because they're your child, because they are part of your blood, and you don't want that soul to be lost in eternity because of what they've done or what they're doing. So you teach this and transmit that. You can't do this when a child sticks their foot in it. You have to have already built it. And this is why all these other don'ts will help to do the do's. A home is filled with an invitation for a safe haven where children can come, even adults. I look at Sister Ivy. How many children are there, Ivy? How many? 7. And what do they want to do? Now, even with Mama gone, what do they want? They want to go home. Because it's a safe place. It is a place where they can be themselves and the world can't touch them. This is what communication does. And if we don't feel like talking, one of the things that I was going to mention, especially for the men that are here in this class, is I know because I saw it in my stepfather, is that they would come home from work and they expected their privacy, to do what they wanted to read what they wanted to do, and they did not get involved in the family and in the children. And that's when I grew up. That's what a lot of fathers do. And it can't be that way. Because now, even as I look at it across my class, most of you sisters work. Well, you all work. All of you work in a job. So both of you are coming home. And she could feel the same way you do too. But you don't have a right. You help produce those children. And you have as much responsibility to teach them, to train them, to lead them in the path that they should go. If not, you're the one that is going to be crying the tears. And you're the one that is going to die knowing that your child is not saved and you may never see them again. So it puts a very heavy load on us as parents. We're never the same once a child is born. So enjoy it, Laura and Wilmer. You'll never be the same. Because after they're gone, then there's the grandkids and the great-grandkids, and then you find yourself alone at times. So we have a great responsibility. You think the word communication is just sand or another subject that can be talked about? No. It is necessary because we're not communicating today. We're texting, we're telling our children what to do, what not to do, but we're not really conversing. If I was to ask you, does your child right now, or you that are children here, do you really know who your parents are and what they've been through in life? Or what they have really done to sacrifice to get you to where you are right now? Or do you really care? Or is it important to you? So these are the things that communication shows us. That if we do them in the right way, we won't even go into that lesson, but Solomon wrote, and in one of his chapters that he wrote, it gives verse by verse by verse by verse how to converse, how Solomon saw conversing was. And if you see this and you understand it, it's in the scripture, it goes to show me that it is very important in our family. Now, this is just an overview. This is not detailed in a whole bunch of stuff. This has been an overview class to tell you the do's and the don'ts if you want your family to function as a Christian family should function. There are some things to do and some things you don't do. You're dismissed. Next week is marriage.